Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Wolverine podcast here on Monday, February 10th. Full house here today. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey in what will be a basketball-heavy episode. We'll have a few football questions when we do the Q&A at the end, but we're basketball-centric today because Michigan basketball obviously at the forefront of everyone's minds. They're 10-2 in conference play, 18-5 on the year, wrapped up that trip to Indiana, which I'm sure Dusty May is relieved that it's over, and they'll get Purdue on Tuesday night in Ann Arbor. Fellas, welcome back.
Yeah, I wonder if Dusty saw his mom. Called up, said, "Ma, the meatloaf." He stayed in the basement, while the team stayed at the hotel on Friday, and I don't know, but I will say this: all the angst over Indiana, I think, has been overplayed with Mike Woodson leaving, and I know it's been on a lot of people's minds. I'm excited to talk about that. And any win at Indiana, fellas, is a good win. I don't care what anybody says. That was a nice win. And you know what? As Dusty May said in his press conference today, how many other teams have won at both LA schools, at Rutgers, at Indiana? It's those are some nice road wins, no matter what.
Yeah, Chris, of course, broadcasting today from outside an elementary school gym.
Yikes.
Brick wall there. So
yeah.
I'd run through that brick wall right now. I'd run through that brick wall for Dusty May.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and at Wisconsin too was a great road win back in December. So
that's right. I forgot about that one.
Right. So they've stacked a lot of these. I mean, the Minnesota game was what it was. The Purdue game was obviously a disaster, but you get another crack at them tomorrow. So that'll be interesting. But I went down to Indiana for the game. That was my first time at Assembly Hall. It was an awesome experience. Obviously helps, especially when you're covering it and, for people to care because Michigan won. So, give them credit for winning another one here, 4 straight. And, again, I mean, the crazy timing of that game happening right after they announced that Mike Woodson's going to be gone after the season. His name naturally comes up on all the hot boards. He gets asked about it, 3-4 times during his press conference. I thought it was a little much, but it's just one of those perfect storms for the media to kind of pounce on a guy like that. And I thought he handled it pretty well, but obviously it was very calculated too.
Did you get up and start threatening to fight people when they started chanting, "We want Dusty" at Assembly Hall? Or
I didn't hear those chants, but no, I did not.
Okay.
They did cheer him though. They, when they announced the head coach after the starting lineups, he got a nice cheer being a former student manager there. Yep. Mike Woodson got some mixed boos, some cheers, probably more cheers because he decided that he's leaving or is being told that he's leaving. But it was an interesting atmosphere.
It's a great venue and fun. Hopefully, Anthony, have you been there?
I've not. No. Unfortunately, the only Big Ten road venue I've been to is the one in our own state, to the west of us here. So
Central Michigan.
Oh, Big Ten. Hey, Central Michigan. You know what? I'll say this: great atmosphere when the team is good. We're never good. I made the NCAA tournament, and I think 21 years now is the streak. So shout out to Chris Kamen. Shout out to all of our friends here. None more so than our pals over at homefield.com or homefieldapparel.com. Gosh, it's bad form on my part. We've been talking about them for a long time. Speaking of good things to come out of the state of Indiana, Michigan's got Dusty May and Homefield out of the state of Indiana as well. They operate out of Indianapolis. Some great vintage-inspired apparel over on their site. Use the promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. And I've got their Michigan collection pulled up right now. Bomber jackets. Clayton Safey's got one of those, and they look terrific. He models it extremely well. Just came out with a hockey hoodie with the script, sort of Michigan, Michigan script on it. It's a Maze hoodie. Looks amazing. And you can get your hands on one using that promo code Wolverine, which will get you 15% off your first order over at homefieldapparel.com. We thank them, as we always do, for their sponsorship of our site. We are also brought to you today by ourselves at the Wolverine, using that promo code UM1, which gets you 2 months of access for a single dollar. It's the best deal in America. One of the best deals our site has ever run. 2 months of access. That's going to take you right up to spring football now through the NCAA tournament, all of those types of things. So some big ticket news cycles coming up here. And to segue into the body of our show now, one of the things that Ballas, good scoopage on your part today. Now that Indiana game is over, there's been the chatter about Dusty May in Indiana and all the reported links. We know what they are at this point. Some positive buzz that Michigan is going to pull out all the stops to make sure that gets snuffed out pretty quickly and keep that guy happy around here for a long time.
Yeah, the gift that keeps on giving, guys, the boosters stepping up, and in this case, some of the same ones. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but the gift from the athletics gods, right? In terms of what they are offering to Michigan athletics in terms of money. So, but they want to make it sure that Dusty May understands that he's appreciated, and we've seen Juwan. Ward Manuel, Michigan's athletic director, do this with Juwan Howard. Dusty May is going to be in demand, and it is one of those things where he just happens to be, according to Indiana fans, the perfect fit, right? So I don't think he sees it that way. At the same time, everything that he said in the post-game press conference, he said it's crazy. I love it at Michigan. He would have been a fool to say I'm never leaving Michigan and losing his bargaining chip, right? Because he should be making more money. And granted, I don't care how they finish the season. It's very clear to me that Dusty May is going to be successful at Michigan. Yeah, you'd love to see them win the Big Ten or stay into the race at least until late in the year and make a nice run in the tournament. But what he has accomplished in 1 year in turning this program around, and he was talking about those wins at UCLA, at USC, at Wisconsin that we were just talking about. That's remarkable, fellas. So do whatever you can to lock him up. Michigan is taking steps to do that. I've confirmed with several people now. And it's going to be one of those things where I think it'd be really, really tough for him to leave for Indiana, if you get my drift, when it comes to buyouts and things like that. And, if someday if he wants to go and coach in the NBA, then he's going to do that, right? And if somebody really wants him badly enough and is willing to pay a ton of money and he wants to entertain that, it's going to happen. But for now, he's happy here. Michigan wants to make sure he's very happy here.
Yeah, and I mean, it only makes sense. And what he's done so far in less than a year on the job. I mean, he was hired in kind of mid-March of last year, has been remarkable, not just in the roster that he built for 1 year, but you have guys, transfers that have multiple years of eligibility left that have produced already. We'll see if some of them stick around. And then, you have a McDonald's All-American coming in the next class and some other good prospects. So he's quickly built not only, a quick fix, but also a nice foundation for the future. And yeah, I mean, look, his answer, he could have said that, I'm never leaving, I'm not going and all that. But I think that's one of those things that is calculated, and you probably speak to your agent about before you take the podium, knowing that you're going to get those questions. I mean, as much as it was a little ridiculous that, there were a lot of Indiana questions during that press conference, I think everyone knew that, some of those were coming. So he opens the door for, some leverage here for himself, which he absolutely should do. And, the winning has only helped that as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty smart, data-driven guy. And, there's no better amount of data out there than, what you could stand to make, what your market value might be, what, some of the things that you want from an infrastructure standpoint that are going to keep you happy. So good to see. If you want more on that report, it is over at thewolverine.com right now. Again, good scoop by Ballas there. And I'll just say this on it. I don't know if there's a whole lot to add other than, you could play devil's advocate and say, oh, well, is it a risk to extend a guy before his, or not even extend a guy, just maybe put a little more money in his pocket and kind of make a stiffer long-term commitment when his first season isn't over yet. There's risk involved in everything you do, but I think it's been pretty apparent from the jump operationally with Dusty May when it comes to, how he sets up his staff around him, how he brings in players, how they evaluate talent, how they, use data and analytics and all those types of things in building game plans. It's been pretty apparent from the start that this guy gets it. And, a year or so from now, or maybe not even a year or so from now, the market value on what I think he brings to the table is going to be much higher than it is now, and maybe much higher than what it'll take to keep him happy, at least for the next few years here. So it's a smart investment. Michigan's, I get when it comes to the John Beelines of the worlds, the Jim Harbaughs of the worlds. Yeah, there was maybe some sort of itch to go back to the pros or try things out in the pros. With Dusty May, you have a guy who's game for the job as constructed with NIL, with all of the things that you have to do to stay at the top of this sport now. So you better pay him accordingly. And it seems like Michigan's going to do that.
Yeah, he's a great basketball coach, and you can sense it. You can see it. There's a list of guys that at mid-major schools have gone to the Final Four and what they've done after that. Not just a flash in the pan, maybe go into the Sweet 16 with a couple of upsets, but guys who make the Final Four, that entire list is a who's of college basketball coaches, right? A who's who. So, and he's among them. You can see it, right? This is a flawed basketball team. And for all that we bitch and everybody bitches about the giving up big leads, well, they got to big leads with guys that are transfers from an 8-24 team to where they are now is ridiculous. So I think he's a great fit here. I think he knows he's a great fit here. You hope he's a lifer. Wouldn't it be amazing, guys, if you got to, finish a good portion of your career with Dusty May, kind of like Tom Izzo did at Michigan State? That's all a lot of these reporters have ever known. And it's fantastic for them. Would love to see it with Dusty May, and he's young enough where, hey, you know what? Say 22 years if he wants to keep coaching like Tom Izzo did, then fantastic. I'd take him. I think he's going to have great success here. Wouldn't stun me at all if he won multiple Big Ten titles here.
Just give him the lifetime contract. Honestly.
Why not? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's a stretch, but no, I mean, you're totally right. Like, there's just. You just know it when you see it when it comes to that. And it's one of those things where I remember saying this before the season, that he doesn't have everything figured out, and he'd be the first one to admit that. But he's one of those guys that knows how to figure out the answers that he doesn't know and then kind of build from there. I mean, he's done it. He's won different ways. They're trying to figure out on the fly the best way to win this year with his team. So it's been impressive early on. And like, if Michigan can step up with all those resources, not only in the form of compensation for him, but making sure that they can continue to have a bunch of ammo here to build their roster the way they want to going forward, then I think there's no reason why he would entertain anything. And the other thing is too everybody's flawed in college basketball, especially now with, you're kind of working with a salary cap. It's almost like pro sports to a certain extent. Obviously, some people have bigger budgets than others. It's about figuring out how to win, and so far, so good for Michigan.
For sure. And if I had told you before Dusty May's first season began that on February 11th, Purdue Boilermakers, defending Big Ten champions, would come to town, and you're sitting there at 18-5, you're sitting there at 10-2 in conference play, and have a chance to, with the win, would they be alone in first place in the Big Ten? Is that how the math would work, at least for one night?
Michigan State plays tomorrow. I think they play Indiana at home, so it would be probably short-lived if Michigan State wins tomorrow night as expected, but they would be tied.
Well, setting this up here then, regardless, I think this game obviously is a huge data point is Michigan in it for the long haul in this Big Ten regular season title hunt. The next 10 days, you're going to get both Purdue and Michigan State at home. You make a trip to Ohio State on Sunday. But we'll start with this Purdue game. The last one, obviously, the bus was still, hadn't fully cooled down yet before that game was over. That was just a complete disaster. One where, again, there are lessons to be gleaned from it, sure, but one where you more or less just burn the tape and know you have to get better from it. And since then, Michigan's won 4 games in a row. Mind you, they've been mostly closer, too close for comfort, but their wins regardless. You have a big lift heading into a Tuesday night game against, a team that is, analytically and from a Vegas perspective, favored to win the regular season title this year. You find a way to go out and win this game on Tuesday. You can't say you're in the driver's seat, but it's a big step in controlling your own destiny the rest of the way.
It is. And these are the games that you have to win, the home games. It's like John Beeline always used to say, take care of business at home, still some on the road, and you're going to be in the race. Now, everybody talks about Michigan being undefeated at home. If you look at the schedule, they probably should be undefeated at home, right? Given the teams that they've played so far. What's the toughest game at home so far, guys?
Goodness.
I mean, how it played out Northwestern, but probably
Right,
Oregon.
right, exactly. And that's not exactly the murderer's row here. So now it gets tougher. And so holding serve at home isn't as easy when you're playing the Purdues and the Michigan States and teams like that. So this is like Anthony said, this is a data point here. We're going to find out a lot about this team. Hopefully they come to play. If they lose by on a last second shot or something like that, they certainly aren't out of the race. If they get blown out though, I think it tells us something here that hey, maybe they're just a little bit below the upper echelon of the league. So, but there are a lot of games remaining, and a lot of teams have tough games to go. To me, the goal at this point is to get in the top four and get that double bye in the Big Ten tournament. I know, they're in it, but the rest of it's gravy, in my opinion. So, but hopefully they just start playing better, guys, and getting back to the point where they find another scorer and they're playing with that great potential that we saw when they won those first 5 games in the Big Ten.
To me, this whole matchup, so many things went wrong the first time around that it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly one thing. But I think the biggest issue was turning the ball over 22 times. They were overwhelmed by not only Purdue's ball pressure, but in full court pressure, but the environment. So this time you're playing at home, they're going to pressure the hell out of you, like pretty much every team should. I think going forward against this Michigan team, you got to handle that better, take care of the ball, and figure out some sort of defensive coverage for what is the Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn pick and roll that's been, ridiculous and hard to stop for anybody, not just Michigan this season, but they had an incredibly tough time and got torched by it. In the first matchup, you couldn't get over screens. You play drop coverage. Braden Smith beats you with a bunch of mid-range jumpers. Kaufman-Renn had a million of those little floaters in the lane. So you have to play a lot better and have a better game plan against Purdue this time around. But yeah, playing close, potentially winning this game would be, massive for Michigan's confidence too, that pretty much the rest of the way, you should feel good about your chances in any game, or at least to be right in any game. And obviously would be huge for the standings to get the win. But, this would be a big test because Michigan's won 4 straight since the loss to Purdue. But like you said, Chris, going to Rutgers, Q1 win. Going to Indiana, Q1 win. They're not exactly great teams, though. They're okay, and Indiana probably a little better than Rutgers, although neither are great. And you held serve at home, but this is now, another quality opponent. First big home test where you can kind of ride your environment and, kind of let the chips fall as they may. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, and something I was disappointed about with the first game they played against Purdue, other than the fact that game was over before, I don't know, insert reason here, insert whatever there. I thought that they had an opportunity against them to. I think for the first time in a while, I think you can say that Michigan's going to go into a matchup with Purdue with a size advantage. They don't have that 7'5" monster in the middle like they have, but when you look at where things are between that first matchup and what we've seen when this Michigan team has its fastball, the key to this game is Trey Downs. He had 6 turnovers in that first game. It's going to be kind of a maybe who plays better between him and Braden Smith. I'm waiting, and I know they made the lineup change over the weekend. I'm still waiting for the light to come back on for Roddy Gale. This could be maybe a sneaky spot for that. But where are we at with this game? Is Michigan going to win this basketball game? Is the biggest question. I know KenPom has it as a 2-point win, basically a coin flip game. We'll see. Is there a Vegas line on this yet?
I think that comes tomorrow or late tonight, right? So
I haven't seen one, but KenPom at 1-point win for KenPom.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic, but I'm not generally optimistic when it comes to games like these, and when they haven't been playing well, right? If they've been playing well, I'd say, hey, this is a game they're going to win. But to me, Purdue is the standard in the Big Ten right now. I think they're extremely well coached. I don't think Chrysler Center is as big a home court advantage, obviously, as Mackey Arena, and never will be, or the Breslin Center. So that doesn't help. But I think you're going to see Michigan come out with a lot of fire, but I don't know that the matchups favor them, especially at the guard position. I think Braden Smith's a stud, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I think it'll be a tight one.
Yeah, the matchup's interesting because coming into the first meeting, you could have argued that, like to your point, Anthony, that Michigan has the size advantage. Purdue's going to have to guard these 2 7-footers, and even talking to Brian Newbert before that game, who covers Purdue for Gold and Black, he was saying that he doesn't know how they're really going to contain those two, and he's like, I'm watching clips of this Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden ball screen, and it's ridiculous. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy. And but they were able to contain it, and it really started with Trey Donaldson turning the ball over 6 times, having issues bringing the ball up the court. Even Michigan had trouble all night long with that you couldn't even really get into anything. Like, they didn't even run any offense, it felt like. So they were completely overwhelmed. I don't think it's going to be the case in this game. It just doesn't seem to go that way in college basketball. You come home, you're going to be really motivated for this game. I mean, you saw it earlier in the year with Tennessee. They go to Florida and lose by 30 points. And then 3 weeks later, they beat Florida by 20 points on their own home floor. Those are 2 really good teams. These are 2 really good teams in the Big Ten. So I could see it going differently there, but I don't necessarily think it's a good matchup. I mean, it's easy to say that after watching what happened a few weeks ago at Mackey, but Michigan likes to play drop coverage with Vlad Golden. Braden Smith is going to get a bunch of mid-range jumper looks. If he makes those, that's kind of their bread and butter. If he misses them like he did in the second half against Ohio State when they lost at home, then I think it opens the door for a Michigan win. They talked before the last meeting about him being like a great quarterback that you have to mix the looks up on. Otherwise, he's just going to pick apart your defense. So maybe they make some adjustments this time around. But I think it should be pretty close. And if Chrysler can get up for some of these games, I think it's going to be one of those. But maybe Purdue doesn't play its best, like some teams don't on the road. Michigan plays a little better. They're going to get a lot of open looks too. Like, Purdue's going to pressure. They're going to help a lot. They allow a bunch of 3-point attempts. They have a really poor defensive assist rate. If Michigan can knock those down, if they hit 10, 11 threes, I think they win. But, I would probably predict a close loss to Purdue.
I would agree with you there. I was optimistic they could find a way to go to Mackey and win, but that was just a little too much. And what I find pretty interesting is between Purdue, Michigan, Michigan State, this next 10, 11, 12-day stretch is gonna tell us a lot about this race, because obviously Michigan's got the games we've talked about. Purdue at Ohio State. They get Michigan State on the 21st. Purdue gets Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan State in their next 3-game stretch. And then Michigan State, they do play Indiana tomorrow, but their 3 games after that are Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, and then you go a little bit past that, Maryland and Wisconsin. So there's going to be some movement here. And I think that all of these teams are probably going to drop a couple games or lose a game there, beat someone else. But by the time that Michigan State game goes final on February 21st, I'm going to be fascinated in seeing where we're at in the standings there, because maybe Michigan goes 1-2 in that stretch, and then it kind of becomes a 2-horse race. Or maybe Michigan goes 2-1 or even 3-0, and then all of a sudden you're in the driver's seat. So I guess between these 3 teams right now, and this is where we'll close out and go to the Q&A from here, who do you like to come out of this and win the Big Ten?
I think Purdue. I think Purdue's got the experience. They got the coaching, and I think they're going to be tough to beat. So I think Michigan State will give everybody a game against. They're damn near unbeatable at the Breslin Center. Again, you got guys with 3-4 fouls getting off the bus up there. So they got a tough schedule though, and they've been exposed a little bit as they don't have shooters. So it's going to be, but I think it comes down to the wire, and I still think 5 losses can win this thing, fellas. That's where we are. So, but the top 4 or 5 are starting to separate a little bit. Some of the losses are going the right way. For example, Ohio State losing at Nebraska, get them out of the picture, and then you're in good shape. So, but I think Michigan's going to finish with 5 or 6 losses. I think they're 4-4 down the stretch, but I like Purdue to win it.
It's funny, the 3 teams that we're talking about here, if you're talking about the top 3 in the standings, Purdue, Michigan, and Michigan State, they have played the 3 easiest schedules in the Big Ten. Very, very backloaded. So I think, each of them are going to record some losses there. As Chris Ballas has disappeared from my screen, maybe technical difficulty, maybe accidentally exited out there. Hopefully we get him back. But I think
the phones are always ringing over there. So
true. Maybe Dusty's got a new contract. But like my point is, these teams are going to stack a loss or two. And we've seen that, right? Some of the teams with the front-loaded schedules have dropped a few early on. Some of them with the back-loaded schedules have got out to these winning streaks and kind of have cruised for a little bit here. So it's going to change. I've always prioritized winning the Big Ten regular season championship. I think it's one of your three goals. I think it's the second most important goal behind NCAA tournament success, obviously ultimately culminating in what you hope to be a national championship. But I'm now that it's 18 teams, I'm a little less worried about it and more worried about just finding that gear that Michigan has shown to have down the stretch here. I felt like I've been encouraged the last two games that they've kind of found that for portions of them. I thought they played really well for about 28 minutes against Oregon. I thought they played really well in the first half against Indiana. And then got bogged down a little bit, Indiana zone. The Oregon, obviously we talked about that last week, how weird of a second half that was.
But then the last 5 minutes they come back and they play extremely well to finish.
100%. 100%. So I and that's encouraging too. They're playing more comfortable in those tight games, but I'm more concerned about just the way Michigan looks. If they can compete with these top teams, get some big wins down the stretch, then I am winning the Big Ten regular season championship. Although I've always been someone who's prioritized it, but we'll see if Michigan can do that. There are certainly, to put it, maybe people that go to therapy, you always have the this is an opportunity, right, instead of a challenge. Michigan certainly has that because the schedule is damn tough down the stretch. So we'll find more out about what this team exactly is against the top tier competition. But even then, right, you get in the tournament and things could change. You're going to be a tough team to scout with these 2 7-footers. Especially if you get past your first game of the weekend and the other team's on a 2-day prep.
They're starting to remind me of, I think it was a Todd Jones quote, closer on the 2006 Tigers. And he was famous for, he'd come in and he'd get the save and he'd close out a game, but he'd put runners on base or they'd give up a couple runs and it was a little closer than it needed to be. And someone asked him about it one day. He said, I'd rather be the guy that almost lost the game than the guy that lost the game. And
he said, go to the kitchen and make yourself a sandwich if you can't handle it. The stress. I actually wrote about.
There you go. Maybe we just need to go to the kitchen and make a sandwich when this team frustrates us. So
I've done that. I've done that before. So.
I'm a firm believer at this point.
Or a cigarette.
Yeah.
At this point, you're 23 games in. I think you are what your record says you are. I think you are what your profile says you are to a certain extent, and we'll see if they can get better. Of course, Vegas odds. Purdue is the favorite in the Big Ten at, just lost my tab, at plus 120. Michigan's right behind them at plus 210. Michigan State in third at plus 260. And then the next two closest teams are UCLA and Wisconsin at plus 2,600. So at least in Vegas's mind, this has become a 3-horse race in the Big Ten. So any other basketball thoughts, fellas?
No, I'm just happy to care again, guys. Last year was miserable. And the direction of the program, you knew it wasn't going to change until they made a change. I'm glad they made the change, and here we are. So it sucks not covering an NCAA tournament. It's amazing covering a deep run in the NCAA tournament. You guys have had that opportunity as well, and it's fantastic. So here's to Dusty May changing this thing around. I can't wait till tomorrow night, fellas. It's going to be a fun one.
Mm-hmm. On UCLA's odds, I'm actually surprised they're that high, but we'll see. They're finally going to resurface from being on the West Coast for 7 straight games. It's funny, they look a lot better there than having to travel to Rutgers and all that. And obviously Michigan went out there and won. But that will be interesting. And the only other thing is just I thought the lineup change, putting Reuben Jones in there and getting Roddy Gale to come off the bench, worked pretty well. I thought Reuben Jones played well he didn't have to do as much in that role with those starters. And he was a connector, as Dusty May said. And it's kind of funny. I was thinking about that word and what that role was. And it kind of took me back to also something I was thinking about going into the game, which was the Cam Chapman shot against Indiana in 2016, the Big Ten tournament, legendary shot, and pretty much put Michigan in the NCAA tournament. And I went back and confirmed this because I remember Beeline saying it at the time that Cam Chapman, the reason why he was in there over Aubrey Dawkins was because he was more of a connector and a flow player to just kind of, instead of bringing in a more high usage guy like Roddy Gale, he's the third highest usage player on Michigan's team. Reuben Jones is the lowest among the guys in the rotation. It allows the other guys to just kind of play off of each other more. He swings the ball. He doesn't have to do too much. I thought that worked well. And then Roddy Gale can be aggressive and hopefully gets his confidence back against some of the second teamers. And who knows, maybe down the road he ends up back in the starting lineup. It's a small sample size, but I thought it was a button that was worth pushing for Michigan. I didn't think of it before, so credit the staff. This is all hindsight for me, but I thought it worked pretty well on Saturday, and we'll see what it does on Tuesday night as well.
All right. Michigan, Purdue, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. I believe that it's so make sure you're brushed up on your streaming and get yourself in there. Questions on that front. Wow, that's embarrassing. This is from Go Blue Toledo 3, who says, is Dusty going to get a new contract before the end of the year?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to the next one.
Before the end of the season?
It's going to be close. Yes. It's let's just say it's in the works. I'd be very surprised if this didn't get announced before the end of the season at this point.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have more leverage
that includes the tournament too. But it's not about leverage at this point. I think they know what they need to do. They've got the boosters behind them. He wants to be here at least for a while, so it'll get done.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. I wonder if he wants it to be a distraction or to do these negotiations mid-season, but that would certainly be nice because then
he's not doing the negotiating. That's the thing. So all he has to do is get a phone call and say, hey, this is where we are. I think they have a pretty good idea, again, based on who we've talked to about where they are. It's not like they're worlds apart here. Michigan is doing it right here. And again, boosters have stepped up. So, yeah.
And he's got good agents. Clutch,
Yes,
Clutch is a machine at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you announced it a few days before the Final Four, and the vibes are high, and Michigan basketball is right on the right track. So
there you go.
It's from John D. Adamo, who says, how does Michigan shore up the wide receiver position, which has been weak for years now? Better quarterback play will help, no doubt, but I still don't think we have everyone we need there.
I agree. And I think they're going to go to the spring portal, and I think there will be a couple available based on what we've heard. No tampering, obviously, although there have been accusations of that by other coaches. It seemed like it was aimed at Michigan a couple of times from some of these guys from smaller
Jim
schools.
Mora.
I have no comment, but I will say that I do think they circle back to some of these other guys, and I think they do understand that they need another wide receiver. And you've got the Lamborghini, right? You've got Bryce Underwood. If you had great receivers, that was the one thing that made Chad Henne so good when he was a true freshman quarterback in 2004, is he had that elite receiving core, and Braylon Edwards, where he could just throw it up, like against Michigan State, for example, in that triple overtime game, and that was a win. So they need more pieces. They are working on that. We will see if they get it done. I strongly suspect they will add one more.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a priority in the spring portal. It's just tough when you send it to, you come out of winter. You did add a couple guys at that position, but then, it's kind of dicey when you wait until the spring, and, it's a matter of who you can bring in, right? So it's not like it's all their fault. You got to worry about, the options that are there. But yeah, it's a position that, really even the year that it was at its best lately, maybe outside of 2019, but was 2023 when you win the national championship. Roman Wilson was very good, but even then, like, your other receiver was Cornelius Johnson, and you needed him to finally play his best on his COVID year, right? It wasn't even in his normal years of eligibility that, he was okay before that and solid the final year, but there just have not been those dynamic playmakers, and they could really use those. Those help, potentially put you over the top. Obviously, Michigan had in 2023 a lot of those pieces around those guys that they're able to kind of, mitigate how much that mattered. But it would certainly be nice to have some dynamic playmakers for Bryce Underwood to work with.
Yeah, and for me too, it's Michigan wasn't the type of place that a guy like Bryce Underwood would go until they were. Like there has to be maybe a paradigm shifting addition at some point too. Maybe that's 26 class. It won't be in the spring portal. I mean, they'll bring in guys, but there's no. I don't know that there's like a Jamison Williams type of guy that'll be in the spring portal, right? So it's gonna take. I think they're going to have to make a big swing here in this window they have with Underwood, and maybe it's even a longer window if they continue to invest and spend at quarterback. But yeah, there's no doubt it needs to be better. But I think I think they're going to get by with what they have this year. I think the ingredients are there to maybe do that if you can land a guy or two in the spring portal, and then have to be a little more aggressive with it in 26 and beyond, in my opinion. We have one from Blue Thunder who says, why do Michigan fans frequent rival fan sites for Michigan news and freak out about what they hear? It's like playing in traffic and being mortified that you were nearly run over.
It's stupid, but at the same time, I think when it comes to Ohio State, and he's talking about the NOI stuff, NOA stuff rather, it's, Ohio State knew about it before everybody when all this sign stealing stuff was coming out. So there's that paranoia that maybe they know something that others don't. And even though we and national reporters have all said months ago that they didn't expect any postseason ban or anything like that, I think right now the concern is about, and we've said many times that the vacating wins and championships hasn't been and won't be on the table. I think the big concern is about what happens with Sharon Moore if he is a repeat violator, right? And will he be suspended? So, but yeah, Michigan State writers know nothing. Even the Ohio State, it's just one segment, right? One lunatic fringe of their segment that's reporting anything, and a lot of it's just hope. So, but there are a lot of glass half empty Michigan fans, as we've seen, and they're going to believe or listen to what they want to listen to, and so be it. So we can just report what we hear from great sources, and I would suggest that you stick with us, because I can promise you we know more than they do.
Yeah, when you say what those sites were reporting, I would put reporting in air quotes there. Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, I think people were so blindsided by it that, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be in the back of their head, well, do they actually know something? And in this case, I think what's been out there is what everyone knows. So it's digging through crap from there. I'll go with one more here. This is from Burger4, who says, hot topic. Will Taylor Swift break up with Travis Kelce now that he lost and the spotlight was taken off of her, and write a #1 song about it? He says he's asking for the boy band fans of the board.
I think she's got a blank space there, and she's going to check his name off. Yeah, he's a loser, clearly. Past his prime. She can do better, looking for a guy like Clayton Sayfie. She's looking to go off the grid a little bit now. So I think
hardworking, salt of the earth guy like Clayton Sayfie.
Exactly. She's going to go Cougarin. So be prepared, Clay. So we got your back.
I don't know. I don't know that I would oblige there, but I would be flattered, as Dusty said, with the Indiana job.
This just in: Clayton Sayfie says he would turn down Taylor Swift.
That's right. Print it. Some Ohio State site can print it if they want.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are both washed up. They showed Taylor; she got booed at the game. They only showed her once on TV. I think they had nothing to cheer about. Are they done or finished? That's the question I'm wondering.
Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is place. Oh Lord! All right, is that it? Can we go?
That's it. Yeah. I got nothing else for you today. Remember to use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for $1. Again, read a lot of great stuff behind the paywall. Join our message board where you can ask questions about Taylor Swift or your favorite boy band, whatever your heart's desire is, we'll be there. We'll answer them. We're there every day. There is no message board in this market that engages as much as we do, and that's a fact. So come join us. Come be part of it. We'd love to have you there. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more podcasts, press conferences, analysis, and all goodies that we provide here at the Wolverine. For Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.